Step outside. Now. This is my house. You can't just... I received a call about suspicious activity. Suspicious activity? I'm standing in my own doorway.
At 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in Charlotte, North Carolina, Officer Derek Mills approached the front door of a brick colonial home located in the Dilworth neighborhood. He believed he was responding to a routine burglary complaint. What he did not realize was that the black man who opened the door was not a suspect of any crime. He was Dr. James Caldwell, a federal magistrate judge, a man who had previously overseen 47 separate cases involving allegations of police misconduct. Mounted beside the door, a doorbell camera was actively recording every sentence, every movement, and every constitutional violation that would soon unfold. And within the next 12 minutes, the encounter would end Officer Mills' law enforcement career and cost the city $850,000. Before we go any further, where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments. And if you believe homeowners should be protected from intimidation and harassment inside their own homes, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to escalate fast. The residence at 1227 Worthington Avenue had been James Caldwell's home for 8 years. He purchased it shortly after being confirmed as a federal magistrate judge for the Western District of North Carolina. At 46 years old, James had devoted his entire professional life to the justice system. He earned his undergraduate degree from Morehouse College, obtained his law degree from Yale, clerked for a federal appellate judge, served 12 years as a federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and was appointed to the magistrate bench at just 38 years old. In his role as a magistrate judge, James oversaw preliminary federal proceedings, including search warrants, arrest warrants, initial court appearances, and detention hearings. He had reviewed thousands of warrant requests, rejected hundreds that failed to establish probable cause, and presided over dozens of lawsuits filed by citizens alleging constitutional violations by police officers. James possessed a deeper understanding of the Fourth Amendment than most legal scholars. He clearly distinguished between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. He could cite precedent on unlawful detentions, illegal searches, and qualified immunity from memory. His written judicial opinions were incorporated into required reading materials at police training academies. The Dilworth neighborhood, where James lived, was among Charlotte's oldest and most prestigious residential areas. Streets lined with mature trees, historic homes, and residents who were professionals, doctors, attorneys, executives, and business leaders. While the area was technically diverse, it remained overwhelmingly white. James was one of only 3 black homeowners on his entire street. That Tuesday, James had taken a personal day. There were no court sessions, no hearings, no filings, just routine home upkeep. He spent the morning trimming bushes, pulling weeds, and tending to his yard. Afterward, he changed into a Duke University t-shirt and jeans, both visibly stained with grass and dirt. He was exhausted, sweaty, and looking forward to taking a shower. At 3 p.m., his doorbell rang. James walked toward the front entrance and opened the door. Through the glass storm door, he saw a police officer standing on his porch. The officer was white, appeared to be in his early 30s, and had one hand resting casually on his duty belt. James felt a tightening in his stomach. He had seen this exact scenario unfold countless times in his courtroom. What James didn't immediately recall was that 6 months earlier, he had installed a Ring doorbell camera equipped with video and audio recording, cloud storage, and motion detection. The device that would document the entire encounter was already recording. Officer Derek Mills had served with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department for 7 years. He was raised in a small town approximately 2 hours west of Charlotte, a community that was 96% white. He entered law enforcement carrying traditional beliefs about who belonged in affluent neighborhoods and who did not. His personnel record raised concerns. Over 7 years, he had accumulated 9 complaints, most involving stops of black individuals in predominantly white neighborhoods. Allegations included racial profiling, demanding identification without lawful justification, and threatening arrest when citizens questioned his authority. Only 1 complaint had ever been sustained, resulting in a written reprimand that did nothing to change his conduct. Mills was dispatched to Worthington Avenue after receiving a 911 call from a resident who lived 3 houses away. The caller, 72-year-old Patricia Berkeley, reported seeing a suspicious black male entering the side yard of 1227 Worthington Avenue. She stated he was wearing work clothes and behaving as though he was surveying the property. She admitted she had never seen him before and assumed he did not belong. What Patricia Berkeley did not realize was that the person she described was her neighbor, James Caldwell, performing yard work at his own home. When Mills arrived, his conclusion was already formed. Black man, affluent neighborhood, suspicious behavior. To him, that combination equaled criminal activity. In the previous 2 years, he had conducted 23 similar stops. None resulted in burglary arrests. Most ended with awkward apologies once he realized the individuals lived there. Despite this pattern, Mills never adjusted his assumptions. Each encounter reset to the same biased default. James looked through the storm door and addressed him calmly. "Can I help you, officer?" Mills offered no greeting, no introduction. He immediately issued a command. "Step outside." Now, James felt the familiar burden of being black in America settle in. Even inside his own home, even as a federal judge. "This is my house. You can't just." "I received a call about suspicious activity at this address. You match the description." James made a deliberate choice. He would assert his rights clearly and calmly, exactly as he instructed citizens to do in his courtroom. Description of what? "I'm standing in my own doorway." Mills' jaw tightened. Most people complied instantly. This interaction was already slipping from his control. "I'm not here to debate. You standing like that? That's the call. You're coming with me for questioning." "Officer, I'm the homeowner. I live here. If you have questions, you can ask them while I remain in my doorway. I'm not required to step outside. I need to verify your identity." "What description specifically?" "Black male. Work clothes. Acting suspicious." James nearly laughed. "I'm black. I'm wearing work clothes because I was doing yard work at my own house. That's not suspicious. That's homeownership. Do you believe neighbors should face consequences for racially motivated 911 calls? Drop your opinion below." Mills stepped closer to the door. "I need to see identification proving you live here." James understood the law intimately. He had ruled on this exact issue many times. "Officer, I'm on my own property. Under the Fourth Amendment, I am not required to provide identification unless you have reasonable suspicion that I committed a crime." "What crime do you believe I committed?" "Possible burglary." "I wasn't burglarizing anything. I was trimming hedges. The clippers are right behind you." Mills glanced back. Hedge clippers, gloves, and a water bottle sat on a table, a clear picture of yard work. But he had already committed to his assumption. Anyone could have put those there. "I live here. My name is James Caldwell. I've lived at this address for 8 years. I'm a federal magistrate judge for the Western District of North Carolina. And you are violating my Fourth Amendment rights." Mills froze. Federal judge. Those words should have ended everything. They didn't. The moment Officer Derek Mills heard the words federal magistrate judge, he hesitated. For a brief second, the authority he believed he held seemed to wobble. But instead of reassessing the situation, he did what many officers do when confronted with unexpected resistance from someone they have already judged. He doubled down. Mills narrowed his eyes and shifted his stance closer to the doorway. "That doesn't change anything," he said. "People say all kinds of things when they're being investigated." James Caldwell remained calm. His posture did not change. His voice stayed steady, measured, and deliberate. "Officer," James replied, "I am informing you of my identity because it is relevant. I am not required to prove who I am while standing inside my own home. You have no warrant. You have no probable cause. And you are currently conducting an unlawful detention." The Ring doorbell camera captured everything: the officer's posture, his tone, and the subtle escalation in his behavior. It also captured the quiet confidence of a man who had spent his career interpreting the Constitution and ensuring it was applied correctly. Mills, however, was no longer listening. "I'm ordering you to step outside," he said. If you refuse, I'll remove you. James inhaled slowly. This is my residence, he said. If you force entry or attempt to detain me without legal justification, you will be violating federal law. That statement should have ended the encounter. Instead, it became the turning point that transformed a routine welfare check into a nationally scrutinized civil rights case. Unbeknownst to Officer Mills, his patrol vehicle's body camera had also been activated automatically when he exited the car. Two separate recording systems were now documenting the encounter, one controlled by the police department and one owned by the citizen he was confronting. What neither man realized at the time was that these recordings would later be reviewed by internal affairs investigators, city attorneys, federal civil rights lawyers, and eventually a jury. Mills reached for his radio. "Dispatch," he said, requesting backup. "Subject is refusing to comply and becoming uncooperative." James raised an eyebrow. "Uncooperative," he repeated calmly. "Exercising constitutional rights is not noncompliance." The officer ignored him. Within minutes, a second patrol car pulled up. Officer Lisa Hernandez stepped onto the sidewalk and immediately sensed tension. She observed the scene carefully, a well-maintained home, lawn equipment visible, and a man standing inside his doorway, speaking calmly. She approached cautiously. "What's going on?" she asked Mills. "He won't come outside," Mills responded. "Possible burglary, suspect." Hernandez looked past him, directly at James. "Sir, is this your home?" she asked. "Yes," James replied. "I am the homeowner. I have lived here for 8 years. Hernandez hesitated. "Do you have identification?" "I do," James said. "Inside my home, which I am under no obligation to retrieve." That was when James did something critical. He looked directly into the camera mounted beside his door. "For the record," he said clearly, "I am being ordered to leave my home without a warrant, without probable cause, and without reasonable suspicion of a crime." Officer Hernandez shifted uncomfortably. She had been trained on unlawful detentions. She knew the difference between a consensual encounter and a compelled one, and she knew that the situation did not meet the legal threshold for escalation. Mills, however, had already committed himself. "Enough," he said. "You're obstructing an investigation." James responded immediately. "I am not obstructing anything. Obstruction requires an underlying lawful investigation. You do not have one." That sentence would later be quoted verbatim in a federal civil rights filing. Mills stepped forward and attempted to grab James's arm through the doorway. The storm door swung inward slightly. James instinctively stepped back, keeping his hands visible. "Do not touch me," he said firmly. At that moment, everything changed. Mills announced that James was being detained. He crossed the threshold of the doorway and reached inside the home. That action, crossing into a private residence without a warrant, would become the single most damaging decision of his career. Within seconds, the situation escalated. Hernandez protested quietly, urging Mills to slow down. But it was too late. Mills attempted to pull James outside. James resisted, not violently, but instinctively, attempting to retreat further into his home. "Stop resisting," Mills shouted. "I am not resisting," James replied. "You are unlawfully inside my home." Neighbors began to gather. Several residents stood on their porches, watching in silence. Phones were raised. Videos were recorded. The narrative was already forming. Eventually, Mills handcuffed James and escorted him onto the porch. James was barefoot. He was still wearing yard gloves. And he was now being detained in front of his own house. At the station, reality finally began to settle in. James provided his credentials. His identity was confirmed within minutes. Supervisors were notified. The tone of the room shifted dramatically. No charges were filed. James was released less than an hour later. But the damage had already been done. Within days, James filed a formal complaint. Within weeks, a civil lawsuit followed. The footage was reviewed frame by frame. Legal experts weighed in. Civil rights organizations took notice. The city conducted an internal investigation. The findings were unequivocal. Officer Derek Mills had violated departmental policy, state law, and the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. The city settled the lawsuit for $850,000. Mills was terminated. Mandatory bias training was expanded. Dispatch protocols for suspicious person calls were revised. And the Ring doorbell footage was added to training materials nationwide. James Caldwell returned to the bench months later. In his first written opinion after the incident, he included a single sentence that resonated across the legal community. The Constitution does not yield to suspicion, and rights do not disappear at the doorstep.